All right, well, now that we have a bowl down, priority number one is to get this thing cleaned up so that we can transport it back to our home state of Michigan. Basically, all we did was a set of boils with either Dawn dish soap or baking soda. 3 rounds of each, alternating, and basically not boiling, but bringing it to a simmer. You don't want to boil it during this process. But in between each simmer, take it out, clean the water as needed, and clean the skull with tweezers and knives and whatever else you can to get every little piece of everything off as possible. In the end, it does a great job. I did end up bringing it back home and boiling it one more time and then bringing it to a car wash to power wash it. All right, now that we got this boiled off, most of the meat and everything, cartilage and everything is out of there. The next step is to do the whitening process. And what I started with is just taping around the bases so that we don't get any whitening agent on the horns. And then I'll wrap these with tin foil and stuff to make sure that we don't touch it while we paint the mix of whitening stuff on here. But that's really the next step. As you can see, we just taped all the way around the very base. And then next we'll cover up the rest of the horn so that we don't get whitening agent on it when we're manipulating it around. Okay, Ava's gonna do the next brow tine. Try to keep it off the skull, right? So just do the Yep. Just wrap it around, make sure you cover all the bone, right? And not down onto the skull at all. And what we do is we just get this pressed on here, and all it is just it's not necessary, but it makes it a lot easier so we don't have to worry about touching the horns while we're putting the whitening agent on it. So now that we got the tin foil on around the bases, I'm just going around and this is overkill, but I'm just taping to make sure that the tin foil stays down and in place around the bases. Now that we have all the horns blocked off, it's time to mix our solution. And what I'm gonna do here is I just got this stuff from a beauty supply place. It's just powder lightener, and I'm gonna mix that with 40 volume cream developer. I read online to do this. Hopefully it works good. The manufacturer or the product names don't really make a difference, I don't believe, but basically you just mix a 50-50 solution in a mason jar or a red Solo cup and just paint it on. So the stuff looks blue. Hopefully that isn't a problem. I just talked to the lady who sold it to me and she said that blue is correct. But I'm still scared, so I'm gonna do the bottom to start. Or just gonna do this and just paint it on. Maybe I do need a bigger brush. I just mixed a 50-50 blend, approximately, and we'll see how it works. I got the underside covered in that mixture, and now I'll just flip it over. It looks like it's lightening it up already. So we got the rest of the solution on the skull, and we wrapped it with saran wrap, and we're gonna let it sit for a couple hours and then rinse it off, see how it looks. Okay, round 2 of bleaching. Put another coat of bleach on there, wrapped it up really good with saran wrap, and then I got a salamander burner, blowing hot air on it, keep it warm. I guess that's supposed to help. We'll see. I didn't take a video of the previous burn, or the previous bleaching operation, but it did make it a lot whiter, so I'm excited to see what a second round will do with some heat. Now I just rotated it to heat the other side, and I'll just keep rotating on occasion to get that activator to work better. bleaching out pretty good. Still a little discoloration in that joint right there. And on the very peak, right on the end of his nose bones. Let's turn out good. My next step is hydrogen peroxide. Everybody was sold out. I usually like to fill it, quite a ways up. And all that is cotton balls that are unrolled and then put all over it. Soaks up the peroxide and keeps it on the skull longer. And just let it sit. This stuff is a lot less abrasive than any of the bleaching compounds or whatever that I was using earlier, but it seems to do a good job. I let it sit. I'll recoat some more peroxide. I got a little bit left in here. Just probably leave it overnight. And then the next day, rinse it off, and then I'll put it just out in the sun for a few days. It should be nice and white. At this point, I just let that skull sit for maybe a week and just let the sun do the work. So now that we've finished the whitening process, it's time to make that bracket that'll actually hold this European mount to the wall. All I did was take a scrap piece of tubing. This one happens to be roughly 3-inch diameter, I believe 1/4-inch wall. And all I did was cut a ring out of that. That ring that I cut was roughly 1/4 inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch wide. And what you can see here is I cut it into 3 equal pieces. 2 of them will be discarded. They can be used for European mounts some other date. But all I need is this one. And as you can see right here, I'm just cleaning it up and getting it prepped for a nut to be welded on it. Once the nut's welded onto it, you'll see as we progress through this video how it works. But basically it just gets dropped into the back of the skull and an eye bolt gets threaded into it. This eye bolt will then be turned in or out and set properly so that it'll hang the European mount correctly off of a wall hanger. These little sanding discs are really nice. You just get them at the hardware store. I don't know how much they cost. I've had this for a really long time, but it works on wood and metal and everything. Works really nice. There we go. That might be a little better. Try to get it centered in there. I like that. Much better. Very nice. Burn the other side and we're good. Easy peasy. This eye bolt was just in there like this for welding. It'll now be rotated 180 degrees to be used as the hanger. This gets sent down in there. The string will let me hold it up against the inside of the skull, and then this gets threaded into there. Let's see what we can do. Oh, that works pretty good. I'll probably end up taking this back out and painting it black, maybe white even. I don't know. Painting it so that it is more discreet, maybe hides easier. But this is all you do. Boom. That's all you do. And then I'll have a bracket that's mounted on the wall, and you'll just hold onto it like that. That's all it'll do. Trying to take a look from a different angle here to show you the bracket, how it works, but all it does is just threads into that little bracket I made, and you just apply resistance against the skull and then tuck that string down into the drain cavity to out of sight. So here all I'm going to do is cut off. This is the bolt that'll go into the wall, and the elk hanger will hook into that, and I'm going to just take off this end. I wasn't sure what size leg screw eyes I needed, so I ended up doing this with two different sizes, a 3 3/4 and a 5-inch. Just use this diamond wheel to cut off. Thing works great. Super simple. So like I said, I did buy two different sizes, and the reason for that is because I wasn't sure how thick the wall was and where the thread needed to be in the wall. Unfortunately, when I built the chimney, there's a stud wall behind that rock wall, and I, for whatever reason, I don't know how I didn't think of this, I did not put a stud at the center where I would hang a mount, and I'm gonna have to improvise here. I don't know if it'll be strong enough if this is just threaded into the rock board behind the fake rock, or if I'll have to epoxy it, or I don't know what we're gonna do, but hopefully it'll be strong enough. And I just bought two different sizes. These are cheap. This was like $1. This was like $1.50. In an attempt to minimize the cleanup, I ended up taping a small garbage bag to the wall. The thought process that was that any of the dust created from the drilling would just fall down into the garbage bag. It seemed to work pretty good, actually. I think what I'm gonna have to do is epoxy that in, because there is no stud. So I don't think that, I mean, the force is all gonna be straight down, so it's not gonna pull out of the wall, but it's loose, there's nothing, it's not screwed in anything. So I think I'm gonna epoxy it in there. But I need to determine how far off the wall it needs to be to hold the head correctly before I do that. So we'll do a trial around here. This in here. Get it in like right there. We'll try that. Hopefully this doesn't fall off the wall, because it is not secured yet. Basically, that guy gets locked into there. Power grab, heavy duty, Loctite. We're gonna give this a try. I'll come back later and I'll paint this hook black so it doesn't show up as much, doesn't stand out. try to thread it through that. Hopefully this works. And I'll add a little more behind it, and then I'll just like that. A little more Loctite. Ideally, anchoring this into a stud would be the way to go, but given our situation, we didn't, which added a little bit of complication. This Loctite I used is plenty strong, so I don't have any worries with it. I did let it sit for at least 4 days prior to hanging my mount.